Last week was all about configuring router on a stick and diving into layer 3 of the OSI model. But today we're ramping up the skills as I walk you through a PfSense lab that's going to teach you how to control network traffic and kick devices off your network like a real pro. And make sure to stick around for a sneak peek at next week's video where I'll be revealing the different attacks that I've learned over 2 years of trying to become an ethical hacker. Alright, let's get started. So first off, I don't recommend using a MacBook Pro. Right here is me trying to install VirtualBox. I know I'm using this old MacBook Pro, but it's just terrible to use. But basically, you're going to need VirtualBox unless you're going to buy the hardware for PfSense Firewall, which I wasn't going to do. And the Firewall is free software, so you can use that. And once you get VirtualBox, you can go ahead and install Kali Linux or Ubuntu, any kind of Linux system on there as your VM. And you're going to want to use a VM to connect to the PfSense Firewall once you get it installed, because when you install it, you're going to have an IP address to connect to over a web interface, and you could just use another VM, pick any one of your choice. There's many out there, or any operating system. You can use a Windows one as well, any operating system, and then just use that VM, and that's what's going to connect you to the PfSense Firewall. But we'll cover all of that later once we get the PfSense Firewall VM installed. I just wanted to show me going through a basic install of Kali Linux if you haven't seen it. And this is just a cybersecurity tool that's used by pen testers, and it's an operating system just full of cybersecurity tools used to attack networks, attack hosts, and certain things like that. If you don't know anything about VirtualBox or installing VMs and everything, I didn't go over that. There's plenty of YouTube videos. I didn't want to waste that kind of time of how to install these things. Those are something that you're definitely going to want to learn on your own anyways, because you're going to have to set up a VirtualBox lab or a VMware lab or some kind of hypervisor at some point in your career. And there's going to be errors and all kinds of crazy things, especially with this PfSense Firewall. It took me about 3 days just to get it installed, just because I wasn't too familiar with how to do that, and I had to go through several different YouTube videos and research everywhere on the internet. I had to research with ChatGPT, but those are just some of the things that you're gonna have to do when you're trying to learn new technologies that you're not familiar with. As well as VM, or learning about VMs, is definitely something that's on the CCNA exam topic, so it's just something that you're going to want to learn. So right here, I'm just setting up the network interfaces. There's several different options. I selected internal network because the lab, I just want to communicate between my VMs, so that's the best network setting for that. And you also want to go to advanced, that drop down menu, and allow all. Those are just certain little things that you're going to have to learn. I'm doing the same here. I'm setting it to an internal network, that way it's going to be on the same network, that way they can both communicate. And you got to make sure that that advanced option right there, allow all, is that promiscuous mode. That setting is to allow all, because the default setting is to deny. And there's just certain things, maybe packet captures or certain things between the two VMs that you're going to want to execute, and that setting is going to keep you from doing that. Finally, after you get those VMs installed and all the network settings in place, all the computer settings in place, whatever, if it was CPU or whatever you wanted to set up, after you get all of those settings in place, all you have to do is just launch both of the VMs. In this example, this is two different VMs, not the PfSense Firewall. This is just example. This is the Kali Linux VM. Again, you don't have to use Linux or anything. You can use Windows for this as well. But the main thing is just getting a VM installed so that you can communicate with the PfSense Firewall via a web interface to get it all configured, which we're going to do for our next step in this process. Alright, so installing PfSense is definitely not a straightforward process. I learned doing this by my research that they've changed their website, and if you download it, that copy or whatever that VDI file or whatever is just not going to work. So don't waste your time with that. I'm going to leave a link in the description. There's several different older versions which I'm using right here. I think it's like last year's version or maybe the year before that. It's a recent version. It may not be stable, but again, you're doing a lab. I guess because if you're buying it, definitely you're gonna have a stable version if you go to their website, but they're free download for whatever reason. Again, took me 3 days just to get this thing installed, just going back and forth trying to figure it out because of how their website was and how that new VDI file wasn't working and everything like that. Now, part of the installation process that was tricky, I've seen it before, but it's one of these things where you're gonna have to remove the VDI file from VirtualBox before you reboot it, because if you leave that file on there, VirtualBox is just going to point to that file, which is just the install file, so you'll just get stuck in the loop. So that's part of the reason why I was stuck on this for 3 days. I found a video on YouTube, I can't remember which one it was, but nevertheless, you're definitely just going to have to go to a drop down menu in VirtualBox. It's devices, and then there's going to be a drop down menu, and it'll show the file that you picked for the VirtualBox to boot the PfSense to, and it's that file that you're going to want to highlight, and then you're going to want to click force unmount that you see right here. Once you select that file from the drop down menu, that way when it reboots it won't point to that file. So then once you do that and you unmount it, it's going to present you with that screen. All you have to do is just type exit. There's nothing else for you to do right here. It is just waiting for you to reset the VM, and that's just going up to file and then just reset VM, and then we're just resetting it right here. Alright, yeah, so at this point you should start seeing your screen like this when it comes back from the reboot, and the VM should start coming up and start running. And I also should mention that your host machine needs to be connected to the internet some kind of way, because by default this PfSense VM is going to configure the WAN interface with your internet connection, and it's going to get an IP address for the internet connection from your default gateway or from your modem. So that's going to need to be configured. I mean, you can bring it up like that and still do this lab without having an internet connection, but if you're going to want to do more advanced labs and start working with the internet connection and the VM, you're going to have your host machine connected to some kind of internet connection so that the PfSense can configure that WAN interface via DHCP, as I do right here. You can see mine with that /16 network. Alright, so hopefully you've got through all that mess of setting up VMs and you got them all up and running and they're installed. So at this point, if you made it this far, all you're really going to have to do is log into the PfSense firewall, and the default credentials are admin and PfSense. And right here I was trying to block ping traffic, but the protocol was incorrect, and that threw me at least for a day or two. And then once I got back to it, I was able to log back in there, and then I did notice that I was only blocking TCP protocol in my firewall rule. And once I made that change, the traffic was blocked and I was able to control that traffic. And that's pretty much how you set it up, a PfSense firewall. Definitely try it out and let me know how it goes in the comments if you have any trouble with it or if this wasn't clear enough for you. Definitely make sure to turn on them notifications if you want to get more networking tips like this, and definitely subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. As always, I appreciate you for tapping in, and I'm definitely gonna holla at you on that next video. Peace. Alright, if you still here, that means you're a real ninja and not a real hater. So let me go ahead and give you this bonus clip on this tool that I found, and it's called Evil Limiter. I'll be going over this tool and so much more next week and in these upcoming videos. But basically, Evil Limiter also allows you to control network traffic, throttle network traffic, and even kick people off of networks. But it allows you to do this on any network, even a network that you don't administer. So one of the required commands is the scan command, and that's what I'm doing here, is just running a scan of my entire network, and then I'm just gonna limit the bandwidth of it. So if you want to get more information like this, definitely subscribe, because I'm coming at you with more videos like this. So definitely tap in with your boy, and I will holla at you on that next video for sure next week. Peace.